Good evening, everyone, and welcome to NBC6 Voices on our Facebook and YouTube pages. I'm Jawan Strader. Well, we are approaching now 3 years since the tragic shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. February 14th is the middle of Black History Month, but it's also a trying time for survivors and families. Parkland is now synonymous for the tragedy that many hope would mark the end of school massacres, but sadly it hasn't. Tony Montalto is working hard to put an end to school shootings. His daughter, Gina, was killed in that massacre. And Tony, he joins us now tonight on NBC6 Voices. Tony, thank you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joanne, for having me on. I appreciate it as well.
You
It's
got
always
it.
a pleasure to speak with you.
Absolutely. Tony is also a friend. Tony and his wife, Jennifer, his son. Tony, how are you guys doing? How are you and your wife and your son doing around this time?
Well, quite frankly, every day is a struggle since the murder of our daughter at school. This time of year puts it a little more in focus as sadly we see the Valentine's things come up in the stores, and we see many people reaching out with their kind thoughts and words. But it's difficult not to remember all the last times we had dinner together as a family, the last time we sent our little girl out of the house to school. So it's very difficult, but we stick together as a family and we try and support each other. And thankfully, it's not just our family, but the group of all of our families try and look out for one another and as best we can make sure everyone's doing okay.
And when that date approaches, what do you do as a family to deal with it?
Well, we kind of play it by ear. There's no telling in particular what we'll do. I believe that the plan is to head to celebration, or the not celebration, it's more of a commemoration that they have at the park here in Parkland. And they have a non-denominational service that recognizes all of the victims. And we believe that, especially on February 14th, the day should be about remembering the victims and not just concentrating on the horrible tragedy that took them, but remembering who they were and how they lived and the fun times and the laughter and the goofiness that the kids shared with their friends and their family. As well as the teachers who did fantastic things that were sadly taken that same day as well. We'd like to think that there can be a little bit more of a positive message on that day.
Amen. Amen. And it's interesting that this week, Broward Circuit Judge ruled that the Broward School District had no responsibility to warn students and faculty at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School of the danger posed by a former student. So I want to know what your thoughts are on this latest ruling that came out, ironically, close to the date of commemoration.
Well, I think sadly we've learned so far through this process that there's right, there's wrong, and there's the law. I believe the judge made clear there was no law that required them to do it. That doesn't mean it was not right for them not to do it. It's such a missing piece of the puzzle for parents to not have information to find out whether their kids are safe or not. As a matter of fact, you may be something coming out shortly from Stand with Parkland as we work to close this loophole here in Florida. We've been working with Representative Dan Daly, Representative Chip LaMarca, and Senator Chevron Jones on something that'll be hopefully coming out shortly to help change the laws here in Florida and close that gap and make sure that parents are informed of threats to the school.
And you're the president of Stand with Parkland, and you have been busy. Tell me a little bit more about Stand with Parkland for all those people that may be watching. What is Stand with Parkland, and what are your goals?
Well, Stand with Parkland was formed by the families of victims at the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting. We quickly realized that the status quo wasn't working, and we banded together to find a way to make change. We're uniquely inclusive. We're nonpartisan. We're focused on issues, answers, and families. We look at school safety in a little bit more of an all-encompassing way. We look at the need to secure the campus, the need to have better mental health screening and support programs, and finally, if you choose to own one, we believe you should be a responsible firearms owner. All three of those things failed our families terribly that February day, almost 3 years ago. And since then, our mission has been to prevent another family from suffering a tragedy like the one that befell ours.
I want to know your opinion. I mean, it's like you think you may have heard the last of a school shooting, and then all of a sudden there's another one. And I'm sure it opens up some pretty bad wounds for many people, including yourself and your family. What do you think needs to be done in order to stop school shootings from happening in our country?
Well, quite frankly, we all need to start coming together. We need to stop having the people on the right and the people on the left screaming at each other, getting all the attention and yelling over the people in the middle. For instance, this last week, there was a lot of talk of a congresswoman from Georgia. Yeah, that was fantastic, but nobody paid attention when members of the Florida congressional delegation, Mario Diaz-Balart, Ted Deutsch, Congresswoman Murphy from the Orlando area, and Congressman Rutherford reintroduced in a bipartisan fashion the Luke and Alex School Safety Act, the LASA Act. That act came about after Stand with Parkland members testified before the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee in July of 2019. We asked for a codification of the clearinghouse of best practices for school safety, which Max Schachter thought of, and then we came together and all of Stand with Parkland participated in bringing together the forces of the Education Department, the Justice Department, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Health and Human Services to create the clearinghouse, which rests behind the portal of schoolsafety.gov. And that schoolsafety.gov is a one-stop shop for anyone entrusted with keeping our students and staff safe at school. It's got everything from how to change the culture and climate of your school to make it more safety friendly. It's got something to address health concerns such as COVID-19. It's got a readiness tool so that your school can check its safety plan against what's recommended. And then it gets a report that shows what's weak. And from that report that shows what's weak, it automatically links to suggestions on how to fix it and to federal grant programs to get money to fix the problems. So it truly is a one-stop shop at schoolsafety.gov.
Amen. And you know, it's interesting because you just skip right over that. You didn't even say the congresswoman's name. We just showed the congresswoman that was making those claims a while back, who had chased down David Hogg and just pretty much harassed him. But instead, you're more so focused not on her thoughts and what she was thinking. You're focused on what needs to be done in order to keep our students safe.
Well, that's the key, is getting serious about being proactive and solving the problems. You know, we've met a lot of really motivated leaders from both sides of the aisle. And we've been encouraged to see small steps as they come together to start to solve problems. But we really need more of that. No single party has the answers. We need to work together to hear from both sides. And more importantly, we need the folks in the middle, the people that are reasonable, that want to listen to one another and have a conversation to get attention and start saying, hey, this is a safe place to be. This is where we should be. We saw how divided this country is in the election, but part of the problem was nobody ran for the middle. So without having somebody running in the middle, it just drew everybody to the extremes. And that's what we need to stop. We need to stop being extreme and stop looking at absolute cases and start learning to compromise once again, the same way we do in our marriages, the same way we do when people, buyers and sellers come together and agree on something and commerce happens. Our system of government requires that cooperation, that coming together to make positive change. And that's what we really hope to see. And that's what Stand with Parkland's about, solving the problems.
Amen. And you got a beautiful picture of Gina Rose there right over your shoulder, looking
Yeah.
down, and she continues to shine a light and help others out there. I want you to tell me, Tony, before we go, I want you to tell me, because I remember having a conversation with you last year. You and we talked, and I said, I got to bring you on to talk about the scholarships that you've been blessing others with. And it's the Gina Rose Montalto Memorial Foundation. Tell me about that.
So my family tried to create something good from all this tragedy and keep Gina's light shining in the world. We chose to do that by creating the Gina Rose Montalto Memorial Foundation, where we help others by giving them scholarships for secondary education. We've given out 2 awards each so far for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, as well as for somebody doing the arts program. We've also given awards to 2 Girl Scouts from the Southeast Florida district who have received their Gold Award, the highest award of the Girl Scouts. And finally, we have also last year, we raised $17,000 for Gina's 17th birthday. And with that money, we gave out 17 $1,000 nursing scholarships to help bolster the ranks of our people who were out there fighting on the front lines during the COVID pandemic.
And how can people find out, Tony, about the Gina Rose Montalto Memorial Foundation if they want more information, or if they want to just donate and give?
Well, you can text for Gina in capital letters to 44321 as a donation initially, or you can go to our website at ginarosemff.org. And we're also on Facebook as the Gina Rose Montalto Memorial Foundation.
You got it. All right. As I told you, my brother, Tony Montalto, man, I really appreciate you as always. And again, our hearts will be very heavy, and we will definitely be thinking about you and the others in the MSD community and the Parkland community. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us, Juwan, and we hope everybody can take a few moments to remember the victims on the 14th. Thank you.
We will. We will. Tony, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Okay, moving on now tonight. Many of the students who were at Marjory Stoneman Douglas 3 years ago have turned to activism since the shooting. They felt a responsibility to make a difference when it comes to gun violence, mental health, and criminal justice reform. Their passion to effect change was heightened after George Floyd was murdered. 3 of those students join us now. Mei-Ling Ho-Shing, she studies political science and international relations at Alabama A&M University. My girl, looking forward to that conversation with you, Mei-Ling. It's been a minute. I can't wait. Hold on. But she's involved in social justice and anti-gun violence movements as well. Also, my little brother, Kai Korber, he's a student at the University of California and Berkeley. He's not really my brother, but he kind of is, He's my little brother, my little mentee. And you got that facial hair now. I don't even recognize you right now, Kai. And also another little brother of mine that I also really talk to quite a bit, who sends me text messages all the time, is Brandon Desant. And Brandon's joining me now. And so there he is with that smile on his face. My man. And Brandon Desant is an artist and the founder of Breathe. And just so I get back to Kai, just so you know, like I said, Kai Korber is a student at the University of California, Berkeley. He's also an advocate for mental health and Black Lives Matter. Thank you guys for joining me. I apologize. I don't have all of you guys because I have you guys on each and every year since the very beginning. But it's so good to see your faces, and you guys have changed. I've just seen you grow. I'm seeing Brandon online. He's lifting weights. He's gotten bigger. And it's so good to see you guys. First off, Mei-Ling, I want to start off with you. I want to know how you're doing. And as we approach the 14th, how are you feeling?
Let's see. Well, going into my freshman year of university, I realized that I needed a break. I really threw myself into activism junior and senior year after surviving the shooting inside of the building on the second floor. I really just threw myself into activism, and I realized that I need to take a break. Once I moved to a different state, in a city, in a community that has, kind of, oh yeah, I heard about the Parkland shooting. I'm able to choose who I want to know my experience, to know my trauma, instead of I get to tell them myself versus seeing tragedy the minute that I walk by, or my car with the bunker sticker, or just wearing my MSD shirt. When I wear it for me, and not for other people. So they really don't know, exactly what hashtag MSD strong is sometimes. But I really threw myself into making sure I visit a therapist, take care of myself, focus on my schooling, and learning how to meditate and take time for myself. Um, I have been working on a different level, really active, advocating for my mental well-being and trauma survivors and gun violence survivors in general, and how do we move forward after a tragedy by ourselves. I've started doing, what is it called again? It's Clubhouse. I love the app. You get this kind of like a podcast, and I get to join in with other gun survivors, and just share my story and just cry on the phone with them. Also
Yeah.
working with Women Now, which is an international women's group that just supports women of all colors and African descent. It's really beautiful, dealing with all types of violence, domestic abuse, HIV, sexual, and gender suppression. It's really powerful. So I'm really taking my activism in a different way as I grow as a survivor, and really taking the word survivor and molding it and building up myself and building up others around me to be able to be comfortable in talking about um, surviving something that's so tragic, which is hearing a gun, seeing someone that has died, whether it was suicide in the hands of a gun, whether it was murder, or even just trying to harm somebody else or harm them. It's a struggle. Um, and going the third year, I feel like it was just yesterday, me back in my math class, but it is year 3. And when it comes to February, I wake up, it is my birth month, but it's just like a weird, eerie feeling that I have, that's like, wow, in this month, 3 years ago, I was going through a very dark time in my life. So it kind of just creeps on back on to you, but it really is time to be with each other and contact each other. I've already started reaching out with my classmates, those I've been in the classrooms with, and also the activists I've met along the way, and really just making sure that they're okay.
Amen. And your voice is very powerful, Mei Ling.
Thank
And
you.
you and I, we met initially. It was at the MLK commemoration, and we met in Memphis. And then, next thing you know, we were able to develop that relationship. And it's so good to hear you,
Thank
and
you.
and for you to share your story is so powerful. And Brandon, I'm curious, man. I mean, I see you. You're so strong, and I know you're out there. You're an activist. You're so active. But how do you feel around this time as we approach the date of February 14th?
It's gotten progressively harder year by year, I feel, because the first anniversary, um, I was pretty much okay. I was out doing, work. I had a press conference in Chicago with an organization called Boys, and did my best
Okay,
to help
Brandon, we're
press.
going to come back to you because we're having a little issue with your audio, and I want people to hear what you have to say. So we're having issues with your audio, and I don't even know if you have an ear pod maybe or something like that that you can use, because we got to get that audio cleared up. So we're going to come back to you, little brother. Okay, so Kai, I want to hear from you. I see the facial hair and everything else. I know you're a young man now. But as we approach that date, you have always been a proponent of trying to make sure that there's adequate mental health out there. How are you feeling as we approach February 14th?
Well, I've always said that the one thing that was neglected in the aftermath of the tragedy was the presentation of holistic negative emotion mitigation techniques for students and family members across the entire community. Everyone was pushing for gun control, different gun legislation, making sure that the situation couldn't happen again. And of course, that's 100% important, but people were pushing for things outside of themselves and neglecting how they felt on the inside. And so for me, my focus was always a return to being able to grow and become a person who can come back from trauma, a person who can live a more positive reality going forward. But I also want to talk about some of the work that I've done, with Brandon, who actually inspired some of the work that I'm doing now. This past summer with the George Floyd situation that happened, Brandon actually drafted the Breathe Bill, and then inspired me to create something called the African American Protection Act. And so it started off as a petition that was on change.org, and it got loads of signatures. Bernice King actually signed it, which was, a really great thing. And so one of the things that I was a proponent for in that proposal was a technology that could rein in police misconduct in real time via the detection of emotions via voice analysis. And so, being at UC Berkeley, I said, hey, we've got all the technological resources we need to be able to create something like this. So ever since this past summer, I've been working on that. And my goal is by the end of this next semester, we want to be able to start testing it in the UC Berkeley community and see if we can save lives by reining in police misconduct and police brutality and police violence by the detection of anger in those officers, and make sure that everyone gets the privilege of having an unbiased audience with them at all times, making sure that they are truly treated fairly by the police officers they're encountering. So that's been my focus for the past, I want to say 6-7 months now, along with, of course, encouraging people around the country to really take care of themselves, to be able to mitigate their negative emotions via whether it's transforming their inner critic to their inner coach, or whether it's understanding the problems that they face in their lives and understanding how they can grow from them going forward via the analysis of those problems, breaking them down, and understanding what kind of solutions they can put forward in their own lives, as well as practicing mindfulness techniques like meditation, EFT tapping, and the likes. So in a roundabout way, I've had my hand in a couple of different pots in the last 7 months.
Well, I'm very proud of you. I really am. I'm proud of all of you. Brandon, I want to go back to you. I think we cleared up your audio, so I want to go back and you could go ahead and repeat what you were saying because it was getting broken up, and I want to make sure that everyone can hear you.
My apologies. Am I good now?
You're good. You sound great.
Awesome. Yeah, as I was saying, I think it gets a little progressively harder the older you get and the more that you grow into adulthood. So I remember the first anniversary of the shooting. I was a senior in high school, and I was doing a press conference in Chicago to try to uplift some survivors of gun violence up there, and I wasn't too I wasn't as affected as I became the next year when I went to college in New Orleans. I was on the second anniversary. I was in my dorm room, just like emotional as I've ever been in, as far as I can remember, being a teenager. And I think it's because of the fact that the older you get, the more you realize how young 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 really is. You kind of start to appreciate life more, especially when you leave high school and realize, oh, that wasn't the end all be all. There's like an entire life out here that my peers at Stoneman Douglas unfortunately weren't able to experience. And that really hits you, man. Like the older you get, it really like starts to take more of a toll on you, I feel.
And I want to ask all of you this as far as changes that need to be done, maybe that have not been done since the tragedy there at your high school. So, Mei-Ling, I want to ask you, do you think enough has been done as far as changing the laws, the gun laws that that were in place maybe 3 years ago as opposed to today? And do you think more needs to be done?
I feel like a lot has been done. I feel like I know the main concern that um, us activists, Brandon, Kai, and I, were really pushing for, gun control, and pushing for different gun laws and security for public schools, but also keeping how security and guns in schools would scare students, and also students of our complexion, Black students in general. I know I will say off of knowing students that are still attending Stoneman Douglas, that security has been beefed up. Some might say that really don't, emotionally connect with the tragedy, say it's like a prison-like. But what I realized growing up is that sadly, this is the world that we live in now. And it's kind of like a really harsh reality, and it's something that you can't really beat around the bush, is that these laws are to protect us. But then again, I feel like more conversation, if we continue, we could start, I don't know how to explain. It's hard for me to articulate. I'm kind of emotional right now, but I feel like as we continue to have these conversations and using these platforms, we will finally find a good space between, controlling these guns that are out here and that are available to people, whether it's in communities such as Parkland or communities such as Pompano or Deerfield Beach. These guns that are coming into our neighborhoods in the hands of children, in the hands of those who have offenses on their record, that we start, cleaning out our neighborhoods of these unlicensed guns, so we could start protecting each other, our children, our sisters, our brothers, our everyone.
That's right. That's so true. That's so true. And Brandon, I'm gonna come back to you as well because you're very active, man. You're always active. I mean, you were part of the Black Lives Matter protests. You were out there. I interviewed you as part of those protests after what happened with George Floyd. So I want to ask you: are you pleased with the changes that have come from this tragedy from your high school? And if not, what more would you like to see done?
Absolutely not. Not enough was done on the day of the shooting, and not enough, in my opinion, has been done since then. On the day of the shooting, I saw dozens, maybe hundreds of men with military-grade assault rifles, riot gear, tanks, and all these crazy weapons, yet 17 people in my school were still left to bleed out in our freshman building due to one single angry white kid with a gun. We need to start focusing on reallocating funds from these police forces who aren't legally obligated to save children from being slaughtered. Um, and we need to pour it into the community. We need to pour it into mental health resources for people who have sunk into such a low where they feel as if slaughtering their parents is the only option. We need to pour it into schools, not only for academics, but to provide better infrastructures for schools so that we have a fighting chance to survive something like this if it were ever to occur again, God forbid. And that's what the primary purpose of the Breed Bill that I and Joshua Turner wrote, to fund a portion of the police's funding and to reallocate that funding into the community.
All right, Brandon, thank you. And Kai, I want to ask you, when people remember and think about Marjory Stoneman Douglas, your high school, on this day, on February 14th, what do you want them to remember and most and take away from that?
Well, I want them to remember that ultimately want us to remember as a community that stood up against an injustice. I don't want the country to think about us as, as victims. I want us to be remembered as people who stood up and made a change and, shook not only the fabric of this country, but the fabric of the world as we knew it. And I want the country to really see the students that came out of my school as members of a generation that will continue to shape the world going forward.
And that's powerful. That is powerful. Guys, I just want to give you all my condolences. Also, I just want to say I'm very proud of each and every one of you and what you guys have done, the activism that you guys continue to take along and move forward and change. You guys did just that. And none of us could ever remotely put ourselves in your shoes. But Mei Ling, I'm so proud of you. You humbled yourself and you opened yourself up to us. And I appreciate you for that. Brandon, you know how proud I am of you. And I tell you that every time. I'm very proud of you. And Kai, I mean, brother, you're going to be the next president one day. So I don't know what I need to say. I just don't go into television. Don't become a news anchor, because that means I'm over. But you guys, I love each and every one of you. I do. And I look forward to each and every year having a conversation with you until, I'm old and gray. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You got it. You can probably hear my son screaming in the background right now. So that concludes ABC6 Voices right now. And again, I thank you. I want you to follow me on Twitter, on Instagram. Let me know what you thought about the show. This has been a great conversation as we commemorate the Parkland tragedy at MSD 3 years later. And remember, education is the key to success. If you believe, you will achieve. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend.